This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, where we help women remove the overwhelm of living their most holistic life. This is the place to find evidence-based nutrition tactics, healthy lifestyle and wellness tips, abundance mindset, and easily implementable low-tox living strategies so you can rise up to your full potential and protect your family's health. I'm your host, Stacey Heine, certified holistic nutritionist and better living advocate. Now, let's get empowered with some simple swaps that make a big impact for optimal wellness. Welcome back to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. Very happy to have you here. We have an incredible guest today, but before we get into the episode, I want to invite you to my monthly membership called Holistic Mama Society. If you haven't been around here for a while, then let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Stacey Heine. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and lifestyle wellness mentor, and I help women remove the overwhelm of holistic living through 5 pillars. They are body nourishment, belief system, honoring earth, mind-body connection, and success environment. And when we pull all of those together, we can truly have a bird's eye view of the life that we really want. But we have to tackle all of the pillars. And it really does start a lot with lifestyle wellness, how we're treating our body, how we're eating, the sleep that we're getting, connecting to the earth, mind-body, spirit practices and stuff like that. So really it takes a full body approach to become your best self, right? And we have to make sure that we're prioritizing our wellness before anything else so that we can truly rise up to the woman that we want to be. So Holistic Mama Society was created just for you. If you are wanting to learn how to eat more plant-based, if you're wanting to understand more about longevity, if you want to reduce your toxins in your home and in what you're eating and what you're exposing your family to, if you want to tap into movement, Pilates, breath work, and then also learn how to grow your own food and how to use herbs as medicine. There's so much in Holistic Mama Society, and we have a weekly live call, and there is a whole archive of amazing trainings that you can go and see, plus a ton of whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, and sugar-free recipes that you can access at any time. So join HMS by clicking the link down below. And I hope that you really come into this with an open mind as you get more into my brand, The Urban Pharmacy, and that you are ready and willing to do the work that it takes to become your best self. Now, as we get going into the episode, let me tell you more about Dr. Jenn Simmons. She started her professional career as Philadelphia's first fellowship-trained breast surgeon. After spending 17 years as Philadelphia's top breast surgeon, her own illness led her to discover functional medicine. So, enamored with the concept of creating health rather than killing disease, she left traditional medicine and her esteemed surgical position in 2019, and she founded Real Health MD with the mission to help women anywhere along the breast cancer journey to truly heal. Dr. Jenn believes that health is much more than the absence of disease. Health is optimal function. In order to function optimally, we must nourish ourselves in a way that is meaningful and for us and avoid the things that interfere with health. Each one of us is unique and we all have our own bio-individuality, and each of us is different in how we process food, what nourishes us, how we detoxify our bodies, and how our environment affects us. Most importantly, however, Dr. Jenn knows that health happens at home and not in a doctor's office, not in a hospital. Health happens at home. So make sure that you listen to this episode. We're going to be talking all about breast cancer. We're going to be talking about Jenn's signature course, The Answer to Breast Cancer, and we're going to be talking about how she helps women to ditch their diagnosis and to design their own destiny. It sounds a lot like what she does and what I do align very much. And we both know that avoiding the things that are going to alter our health, and nourishing our body with what we need are two ultimate factors to create the life that we want. So anyways, I hope that you love this episode. Give it a thumbs up and share, and make sure that you follow me here wherever you are listening to this episode. And here's Jenn. Dr. Jenn Simmons, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Very thankful for your presence today and your wisdom and time. So before we get into the specific questions about breast cancer in particular, and cancer, which is what we're going to be talking about today, I would love to know, Jenn, your story of your profession, what you used to do and what you do now, and why.
Yeah. So I actually don't remember a time when I didn't know about breast cancer. So growing up, there was a singer-songwriter in the 1970s and 1980s. Her name was Linda Creed. She wrote all the music for the Spinners and the Stylistics. She was like the queen of Motown sound, beautiful, vibrant, just like this force to be reckoned with, this like incredible beam of light. And she was my first cousin.
Oh, wow.
Now, she wrote 54 hits in all, but her most famous song that she ever wrote was The Greatest Love of All. And, you know, there's like literally not a person on earth that hasn't heard that song, right? Mm-hmm. So she wrote that song in 1977 as the title track to the movie The Greatest, starring Muhammad Ali. But it actually received its acclaim when Whitney Houston released that song in March of 1986. And at that time, it would spend 14 weeks at the top of the charts. Only Linda would never know it, because Linda died of metastatic breast cancer 1 month after the song was released. I was 16 when my hero died. And her life, and ultimately her death, gave birth to my life's purpose. I never wanted another woman, another family to have to suffer the way that my family suffered. And Linda is one of the many, many women in my family. Sorry, I actually have a zoo. I have dogs. Linda was one of the many women in my family that suffered and lost their life to breast cancer. So in my world view, everyone had breast cancer and everyone died of breast cancer. And it was like totally unacceptable to me. And so I did the only thing I knew how to do. And I became a doctor. I became a surgeon. I became the first fellowship trained breast doctor in Philadelphia. And I spent a lot of time in that space, almost 20 years. And I was at the top of my field doing like amazing, really innovative things, and thinking that I was making a huge impact. And I was, for the women that I was helping. And so here I am, like 15, 17 years later, and I'm running my practice and running the cancer program for my hospital. And I'm a wife, and I'm a mother, and I'm a philanthropist and an athlete and a friend. And I have all these balls in the air, and I think I'm an expert juggler. And one day they all came crashing down, because I went from being what I thought was healthy to not being able to walk across the room without being short of breath. So I'm on the tennis court one morning, and because I used to play for like a couple of hours before I went to work in the morning. So I would get up at the crack of dawn and go play tennis. And 10 minutes warming up, and I have like chest pain, palpitations, shortness of breath. And I think like, oh, this must be what a heart attack feels like. Mm-hmm. And so I drive to the hospital and spend the next 3 days undergoing a barrage of tests. And I'm sitting in the office of my friend and colleague and physician 3 days later, and he gives me a diagnosis of Graves' disease. So Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid that is treated just like cancer because it's life-threatening. So he's telling me that I need to have surgery to remove my thyroid, chemoradiation, and I have to take lifelong thyroid hormone replacement. And I really don't know what made me say no, because remember, like, these are things that I recommended to people all day, every day, without hesitation or reservation. I'm running an NIH certified cancer program. So I clearly practice by the standard of care. I know this is the standard of care, and yet something inside me just said no. And because this disease is characterized by insomnia, I had lots of time to think. And so I did what I tell everyone not to do, and I went on Dr. Google. And on Dr. Google, I keep seeing references. I Googled, how do you heal your thyroid? And I keep seeing references to diet, 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 diet. Now, as a traditionally trained physician, we get 15 hours of training in our first year of medical school. And then, I kid you not, never again. Never, never again.
On nutrition.
On nutrition, never. And I have medical school, I have residency, I have fellowship. Like, I spent a lot of time in training. There were plenty of opportunities to talk about it. But because the medical industry in general doesn't think it holds any value, they don't teach it and they don't spend any time on it. So, and because I wasn't overweight, I thought I knew everything I needed to know. Right? Like, I thought I had that covered. And so I decided that, more is better and maybe I should learn. And so I sign up for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Now, I sign up very reluctantly. And my whole approach is like, I'm already a physician. What could I possibly have to learn here? But I do it. Because I have this diagnosis and I know that I don't want surgery and I don't want chemo radiation. So one of the first lecturers is a man named Mark Hyman. And while, everyone knows exactly who he is now, 7 years ago, very few people knew who he was. And so he comes on stage and he introduces himself as a functional medicine physician. And I say to myself, like, I've been a physician for 20 years at this point. There's no such thing as a functional medicine physician. What is this quack talking about? But I tell myself to check my ego at the door and that, there must be a reason why I'm hearing this. And so I do just that. And I listen to this man talk. And within 5 minutes of him speaking, my whole world makes sense. And I know exactly why I got sick. I got sick so that I could be in that chair on that day, listening to this man speak, because this was my true calling. Because in looking at people through a functional lens is the only path to healing. And so I'm an early adopter. So I sign up for IFM, the Institute for Functional Medicine. So at one time, I'm working full time. I'm attending IIN. I'm attending IFM. So it took me 3 years to heal myself. It took me 4 years to become certified in functional medicine. And it took me 5 years to leave surgery, but I did. Because I knew that the only way to improve the system was to stop playing by their broken rules. And that me operating on someone and removing a tumor was not changing the trajectory of their life. I was just delaying the inevitable. Because unless you really get down to the root cause, unless you examine what is happening and determine what the underlying cause of the disease is, no matter what disease we're talking about, unless you correct that, there's nothing stopping it from coming back or manifesting as something else. So I actually had like one specific patient who kind of convinced me that I was no longer in the right place. And in 2019, I walked away from surgery. I opened Real Health MD. And now I help women anywhere along the breast cancer journey to restore their health, to stop defining themselves by their diagnosis, and to design the destiny that they desire.
That's so powerful. Jenn, can you explain to the listeners, because I teach holistic living, right? What does functional and holistic, do you think they overlap? Is this
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
It's a holism approach, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the main difference between what functional medicine is doing and what traditional medicine is doing is traditional medicine is all about symptom management. And functional medicine is about optimal function. And in order to have optimal function, you cannot look at things in separate systems because we are all one system. And so you have to look at the whole in order to get optimal function. There's no way around that. So I think holistic medicine and functional medicine, it's two ways of saying the same thing. We arrive at the same endpoint.
So for those that are listening and they're interested in before even a diagnosis, what are some of the things that we can do lifestyle wise to help reduce our risk of specifically these hormonal cancers like breast cancer, prostate, etc.?
Yeah. So let's first talk about like why hormonal cancers are so prevalent, right?
Please.
Because we think that cancer is something that just happens to us. It's bad luck or something like that. And it's simply not true. 80% of breast cancers and probably prostate cancers by extension are preventable. These are environmental diseases, and our genes have not changed over thousands and thousands of years. So this isn't a genetic cause. It's not a family cause. It is our environment, and our environment is deteriorating, and it's deteriorating at the hand of xenoestrogens. These are environmental estrogens that are acting on our estrogen receptors and causing a lot of disease. And so the thinking that estrogen causes breast cancer is absolutely positively wrong. And we really need to unlearn that thinking because that's not what's happening. And anyone who thinks about it logically, breast cancer is far more common in the postmenopausal woman. In the postmenopausal woman, where estrogen is scarce,
right?
That's when we're seeing an exponential amount of breast cancers, right? We do see it in premenopausal women, but it's eclipsed by the number of postmenopausal breast cancers we see. In addition, if estrogen were the issue, when is estrogen its highest? In pregnancy. And yet, cancers during pregnancy are relatively rare. I'm not going to say they don't happen. Of course they happen, but they are relatively rare. Compared to the number of pregnancies that happen, breast cancer during pregnancy is rare. So estrogen is not the issue. The issue is that we have all of these things that act like estrogen in our environment. So these are xenoestrogens, and they come in the form of plastics, antibiotics, PCAs, PCBs. Fragrance is a huge one. And so what's happening is because they have the shape of estrogen, a normal estrogen molecule will sit on the estrogen receptor, do what it's supposed to do, dissociate, and then your body detoxifies it and sends it away. Xenoestrogens come in, and because they're shaped a little differently, they sit on that estrogen receptor and they don't let go. And so they overstimulate. And it's that overstimulation that leads to replication errors or DNA errors. And that's cancer cells. Now, our immune system, an intact immune system, should be able to recognize those cancer cells and destroy them. But the problem is, most of us, because of all these environmental toxins that we are dealing with all the time, toxic food, toxic drink, alcohol, stress, all the herbicides, pesticides in our environment, glyphosate in our food. And then you think about like things like trauma, and all the microplastics and that kind of thing. And now we have an immune system that's not functioning the way it's supposed to be functioning. And this is the perfect storm for breast cancer. And the last part that I'll say about immunity is people are still, in general, using too much sunscreen, avoiding the sun, and not having their vitamin D levels measured. And vitamin D is the cornerstone to our immune system. So by and large, a vast majority of us are walking around nutritionally depleted with low vitamin D levels, swimming in this sea of chemicals and xenoestrogens, leading really, really stressful lives, not getting enough self-care. And this is really the recipe for breast cancer and other hormonal cancers. Now, I gave you the bad side. Here's the solution. And the solution is very real and accessible to everyone, right? So we can all choose to eat a whole food diet. We can all do that. I recommend a whole food plant-based diet. If you have a cancer diagnosis, I recommend a whole food plant-based grain-free diet. But this isn't about religion for me, right? Like, if everyone can do better, and when you do better, you get better, right? So just cutting out processed foods from your diet is going to make a huge difference in your health. Huge, astronomical difference in your health. Because when you cut out processed foods, you cut out GMOs, genetically modified foods, and you cut out a ton of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and glyphosate. That's the bottom line, is that you decrease your toxic load exponentially when you cut out processed foods. The water that we drink is so important, right? So filtering your water and not drinking out of plastic goes such a long way towards prevention. Prioritizing sleep. The average person does not have a regular sleep schedule and does not sleep as much as they need to sleep. And chronic short sleepers are at risk for being overweight, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disease, cancers, like all chronic diseases, just from not sleeping enough. So prioritizing sleep goes a long way towards your health. Having leading an active life and having intentional daily movement that includes cardiovascular work, weight training, and it doesn't have to be heavy weights, just like lift something, right? Balance and flexibility. This is what maintains our mind-body connection. And it's that mind-body connection that staves off depression, dementia, Alzheimer's. These are things that are really important that ultimately are killing us, right? So we are meant to move. And if you don't move it, you lose it. That's the bottom line. So leading an active life is prevention. I want to be clear that you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. So we do these things together, but you don't have to exercise for 8 hours every day. In fact, there was a study out of Harvard, I think, that showed that even 1 hour of walking a week was associated with increased survival in breast cancer patients. 1 hour of walking, that's like nothing. You're going to do that on your treadmill while we do this podcast. So just making these things a priority. And the last thing that I'll say that is really important for toxin avoidance, certainly, and avoiding as much as you can will help you. Having some detoxification practices will help you. Things like infrared sauna, sweating. You can use hot baths. You can use steam rooms. You can use saunas. You can use exercise, like things that make you sweat. Making sure that you're pooping every single day, at least once a day, and drinking enough water so that you do not have dark urine, but you have light yellow or clear urine, right? And then the last thing is purpose-driven living, being connected, really, serving others, serving your family, serving your community. And you don't have to be anything important. You have to be the best version of you, right? We were all put here for a different purpose. So Stacey, you're gonna serve a purpose that I could never serve. And I'm gonna serve a purpose that you don't serve. And yours is not more important and mine is not more important. The important thing is that you serve a purpose. And so, when you live like this creates health. This creates longevity. And that's where we want to focus, because what we focus on grows. So we don't want to focus on disease because that doesn't serve us. When you think about disease, you just get more disease. But if you can start where you are and build these healthy practices, this will reward you. This is how to live as long as possible and die young.
Okay, so I have a question. Are you loving these episodes from the Urban Pharmacy? And if the answer is yes, then you're also going to love Holistic Mama Society, my monthly membership. And the reason why is because not only do I do trainings and education and cooking demos, but I also have guest speakers come in, even doctors, and talk about how to elevate our wellness. So I want to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what the back-end website for Holistic Mama Society looks like, in addition to our community that we already have that you can tap into on a daily basis, and you can access me as your mentor at a group rate, which is amazing. But let's talk about the different topics that we have in the website and also some of the trainings that we've had. So it's organized by the 5 holistic pillars that I've told you about before: body nourishment, belief system, honoring earth, mind-body connection, and success environment. But then we also have an area that's called Begin the Journey, where you get to do some self-work if that's something that you are interested in doing, to kind of dive more into understanding your past habits and all of that. And then we go into mind-body connection. We have yoga, we have breath work, we have parasympathetic activation strategies, we have rewiring the brain through neuroadaptation, we have vision casting with a guest speaker. We also have then the body nourishment section, which includes some, but of course not all, a gut health and plant-based eating live workshop. We also have batch cooking. We have nutrition 101 and 102. We also have opening up detoxification pathways with a guest speaker. And then moving on, we have so much more within that pillar, but honoring earth. We talk about gardening. We also talk about how to make your own medicine if that's something that you're interested in. We talk about how to grow sprouts and microgreens, sustainable living and eco-friendly and eco-consciousness. We also then have success environment, and some of the trainings within that include understanding what a success environment is, and then also a training on how to clean out your pantry, your fridge, food inspiration, home organization basics, metabolic health, toxins, and how that affects your health. And then also transitioning your kitchen to a medicine cabinet and detoxing your home. And then in the belief system pillar, we have mastering your life with the 5-second rule. We also tap into the 1% better concept, understanding growth versus fixed mindset, habits, understanding what's really holding us back. And then we have tons of recipes and demos, over 80 in the vault right now when you're listening to this in March of 2023. So many tools there. We also have past live Q&A sessions, a low tox product database that I am working on for you, and then a Get Moving challenge, which are just like 20-minute easy mind-body connection movements and breath work practices that I recorded. They're super scrappy, but they're also beneficial and people love them. So that's just a glimpse in what you're going to get when you join HMS. But the real value also comes with the one-on-one work that you get when we do our live calls and a community that's going to help support you along the way. So before you move on to the rest of this episode, click down in the show notes and please consider joining HMS. Ask yourself, what is my life going to look like a year from now if I don't take action on it today, right? Am I going to feel stuck still? Am I going to take the steps that I want to really become the woman that I want? Or am I going to sit uncomfortable in my body, unknowingly exposing myself to toxins, stuck in this fixed mindset and not able to become my best self? These are questions that you should be asking yourself. If you have questions about joining HMS and you're not quite ready, just click the link down in the show notes to get a free wellness chat with me. We can talk for 15 minutes to see if this membership is right for you. All right, back to the show. You sound and remind me a lot of Chris Wark.
I was just on his podcast this week.
Oh, were you really? He's gonna come on. I am so thrilled to have him on. Like, he's just so incredibly inspiring.
Yes.
And so are you. And the way that you're teaching, I mean, I feel like I'm out of questions now. I'm like, well, I mean, we're talking about prevention. We're talking about why breast cancer and these hormonal cancers are so prevalent. But like a lot of the times this prevention, Jen, is the same as the treatment. Like it's this holistic lifestyle approach. And you just literally covered everything, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. And I really appreciate all of your wisdom, but you and Chris specifically, you talk about this purpose, this mindfulness, this focus on the fact that we can heal. And so much of it has to do with our mind. So much of it has to do with how we show up, who we're surrounding ourselves with, with ourselves. And it's a whole culmination, and it's not just diet and exercise. It's all of the things.
Absolutely.
So I do have a question in particular. I am absolutely somebody who I'm also a proponent of whole food, plant-based living, whole foods in general, always, right? Regardless if we're incorporating a small amount of animal products, that is what it is. But I do have a question about dairy for you.
Yeah.
What do you think about that with the estrogen?
Yeah. So, the way that we get dairy is that we give cows lactational hormone, right? We convince them that they are, and synthetically, we convince them that they're pregnant and that they continue to lactate. So their milk is actually like very, very concentrated hormone, synthetic hormone that came through the cow, right? So this can never be good. I mean, that's like part of the xenoestrogens. Mm-hmm. So I am not a fan of dairy, and it has nothing to do with lactose intolerance or anything like that. I'm not saying don't eat dairy because it's going to give you an upset stomach. I'm saying don't eat dairy because we do not want to increase our synthetic hormone burden, mm-hmm. because that is just taxing our detoxification system. And the problem with cancer is that we live in such a toxic world. They're coming from so many places that our detoxification system just gets overwhelmed, right? It's like laundry, right? Like your washing machine is only going to work so fast. So it can't speed up because you have more laundry. Well, that's the same thing with our liver. Like our liver takes a specified amount of time to detoxify. So if you're putting more chemicals in than it can do in that prescribed period of time, what happens is that we just store them. We store them as fat. We store them in various organs in our body, and we become toxic. And oftentimes what you'll see is when people start to lose weight and release toxins into their system, you have to be very careful with them because they can become have a little bit of toxic overload, which is why like drinking a lot of water and sweating it out and making sure that people aren't constipated on a weight loss journey. That's why it's so important, because they are getting rid of some of those toxins that they had stored in the fat cells. And so that's why people on big weight loss journeys, you have to be very careful with them.
And just we'll move away from dairy here in a minute, but what do you think about this huge raw milk thing? I mean, even if you're getting it from a cow, Jen, even if you're getting it from a cow that actually is pregnant and these natural estrogens, like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I think like once in a while, it's probably not a problem, but I don't think it should be part of anyone's daily diet.
Yeah.
It's just where I come from.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just a huge trend. And, you know,
I hear you.
Especially with like the followers of Dr. Mark Hyman, which we know and we love. There are some things that are a little bit questionable sometimes, especially when it comes to cancer. Maybe not minerals, right? Mineral absorption and stuff like that, with some of the dietary advice that we're hearing from him. But cancer prevention, I'm not really quite sure there's an alignment there sometimes. So
I agree.
Yeah. So
I agree.
Okay. We know how to prevent.
He's still my idol though.
Yeah. I mean, he's incredible.
So, you know,
he's incredible.
If he ever hears,
he's changed your life.
You're still my idol.
You'll probably be on a podcast with him someday. Don't you worry. You'll be a full-blown testimonial for him. So what do you do when people come to you? What are some of the first things that you're teaching them? Is it these lifestyle factors? Is it releasing fear? You know, I know you have a course, so you can talk about that, please, and explain. But do you also, Jen, serve people who are wanting to prevent cancer, or are you just serving people who do have it currently?
I mean, like, quite frankly, I would love to get people before.
Yeah.
But it often takes a huge wake-up call, like a cancer diagnosis, to really commit to your health.
Yeah.
Most people don't do anything. And even after a cancer diagnosis, there are still a lot of people who just want the surgery and the chemo radiation and take the pill, right? There are still a lot of those people, and God bless them. You know, everyone has to make their own choices. It's very scary to take responsibility for your own health. It really is. And I have been told point blank by women with metastatic cancer, it's easier for me to blame the doctor or the drug when it doesn't work than to blame myself. And I get it, right? These are super scary things, and people are inherently afraid of failure and afraid of walking outside the tribe. So if you are going to make significant changes in your lifestyle and you live with people who aren't, and you're surrounded by people who aren't, this is a very big, scary thing. Now, you alluded to your health and the people around you. And Mark Hyman talks about this all the time, where
I call it the success environment. It's a pillar that I teach.
Yeah. So we are only as healthy as the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So if you're going to go on a health journey and they're not going to come with you, the bottom line is that health journey is going to be 10 times harder for you, and you probably won't stay on it. You probably won't. And it's super scary to change your tribe, but it's probably going to be something that you have to do. So before you get a big wake-up call, it's very, very hard to get people interested in this. Sometimes I get people who have a genetic mutation and they're told that they are certainly going to get breast cancer and they have to have their breasts removed and take tamoxifen and have their ovaries removed. And I love it when I get those people because I have the opportunity to help them remake their environment, and they're really, really, really motivated to do it. Right. But the vast majority of people that come to me because they got a breast cancer diagnosis and they want to do the most. And I do not tell people not to have surgery, not to have radiation, not to have chemotherapy. I mean, first of all, not for nothing, but by the time people get a breast cancer diagnosis, like their sink is overflowing. Right? So surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, they're mopping up the floor. And you have to mop up the floor. Like your sink is overflowing. So I'm okay with that. These people are in crisis. But the far more important part of that picture is turning off the faucet. Right? That inflammation is flowing and we have to turn it off. So I wrote this course. And it's all about like where the inflammation is coming from and how you can create your anti-inflammatory life. And we go through all the pillars that we spoke about before. And then I decided that this course is so much better in person, not in person, like live. And so we now do this course over Zoom, and people are listening to the videos independently, but then I'm doing a summary video each time, and then we're all like talking it out. And so that's like a 3-month part of my course. And then after that, we all go on to do functional testing together. So we are like figuring out what is working, what's not working, helping each other to fix it. And it is just this beautiful experience. And I was speaking to someone the other day, and she said, you know, the very best part of this group is there are days where I feel like I just can't hold myself up anymore. And I come here and I get lifted by everyone.
That's powerful.
And it was just like so beautiful. And I actually have like chills right now. And really, like, this is why I do it. This is why I do it, because this really changes the trajectory of people's lives. People who go through my course and my program are healthier after breast cancer than they ever were in their lives. And this is so powerful.
It is. So some of these modalities like detoxification, sauna, sweat, exercise, these are typically things that people can, for the most part, implement. Now, diet is probably the hardest change for most people.
It is.
Would you agree?
It is. And so
how do you do this? How do you train people to get off the pleasure trap of processed food addiction, sugar addiction? What is your strategy? What's your approach?
Yeah. Remember, I have a huge motivator on my side because my ladies are afraid of dying. Right. So that can be really, really powerful. And I have found that if you can get off sugar and processed food for 3 weeks, you can stay off.
Mm-hmm.
It's really those first 3 weeks, those habit forming 3 weeks where your taste buds are really adjusting, your microbiome is adjusting. During that time, that's the white knuckle time. But these people are so motivated and they're surrounded by support and love, right? Because everyone there wants the same thing. They want to succeed, they want to be healthy, and they want to help someone else. And that is so powerful. You're a lot more likely to be strong for someone else when you're held accountable to someone else than you are to yourself.
Wow.
Sad, but true.
What are some of the foods that we know are powerful against cancer prevention or recurrence?
Yeah. So I generally have a checklist that I just make sure that people get to those foods somewhere in the course of the week. So we're talking about eating from like 5 foods every single day. So we're doing colorfuls. So you're making sure that you're eating every color in the rainbow in the course of the week. We're talking about cruciferous. So broccoli sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, that kind of thing. We're talking about mushrooms because mushrooms, first of all, are natural aromatase inhibitors. So they help to detoxify estrogens, but they also have an amazing amount of medicinal properties. So the medicinal mushrooms are broken up into the culinary medicinal mushrooms. So we're talking about shiitake, maitake, lion's mane, and then the non-culinary. So reishi, turkey tail are 2 of my tops, but I also talk about chaga and cordyceps. What am I leaving off?
Lion's mane.
Yeah, but lion's mane is a culinary mushroom. So you can actually eat that mushroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And the other ones, I generally recommend people supplement. And I rotate them. So that because our bodies really do recognize supplements and after some time become less responsive to them. So I rotate them around. So we have colorful cruciferous medicinal mushrooms, onions, something from the onion family, garlic, something from the garlic family. So that is every single day. And then I tell people, like, you should look at every plate that you're eating. And half of it should be filled with non-starchy vegetables. And you should include healthy fats there. So we talk about what the healthy fats are. And then there should be protein on every single plate, especially women as they cross over 40, they start to need more and more protein in order to maintain muscle mass and maintain hormonal health. And so looking to make sure that you have protein on every plate is really important. And then if they want some kind of starch, like 25% of the plate can have a starchy vegetable or something like that on it. And if you kind of stick with that plan, you really do well. And many people, well, I don't work with newbies anymore because it's just too much. So like I only work with people who have some knowledge of functional medicine or have like done something to start to adopt these healthy habits. But people in general are so undernourished that when they start to eat whole foods, they feel so good that they don't really want to go back to their processed diet because they feel like shit afterwards.
Yeah.
Like people will tell you once they've been eating well and clean for a little bit, if they have a cheat day, they're paying for it. And it's like not even worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up dietarily, can you explain your methodology with the grains? I would love to know more about why there are some, specific times that you definitely suggest potentially taking them out.
Yeah. So let's start first with grains are the seeds of grass. So grass is consumed in general by ruminators. And ruminators, like cows and horses and things like that, they have digestive tracts that are much, much, much longer than ours. And they're reprocessing these things over and over and over again. We have a relatively short digestive tract that really doesn't look anything like a ruminator's digestive tract. So everyone is going to struggle with grains to some extent, some more than others, but everyone is going to struggle with grains because we're really not meant to eat them. Now, that's one issue. In the cancer population, not everyone, but a lot of people have insulin and insulin-like growth factor as one of the driving forces of cancer growth. Mm-hmm. So if someone has active cancer, I want to be really, really mindful about their blood glucose levels and, more importantly, their insulin levels. And so because we have no nutritional need for grains, so if we never ate another grain again, we would suffer no nutritional deficit. Mm-hmm. So because we have no nutritional needs for grains, and grains are higher on that glycemic index, and they do lead to the release of more insulin and therefore more insulin-like growth factor, someone with active cancer, I discourage them from eating grains. Mm-hmm. Now, if you no longer have active cancer and you are of normal weight and you wear a continuous glucose monitor and the grains do not cause an issue for you, then I'm fine with it. Mm-hmm. But when people are in crisis, I'm very, very mindful about not having grains in their diet.
Good to know. Yeah, I've definitely known that, especially with white flour, refined grains, we know that definitely increases that insulin-like growth factor, but haven't really heard about it with the whole grains as much. So I'm sure there's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean they're all foods, right? Like to an extent can raise that.
Yes. Yes. And the thinking was that the fiber in whole grains was preventing those insulin spikes. Mm-hmm. But you can just look at someone's continuous glucose monitor after they eat a bowl of oatmeal, which mm-hmm. is whole grains, and you can see that glucose spike.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good. Such an episode full of wisdom, and just you talked so much, which is great. I'm so glad I didn't even have to ask you many questions because you just laid it all out for us, Jenn. So before I ask you the very last question that I ask everybody, are there any final thoughts that you would like to share with people, and specifically maybe talking more a little bit about your course so that we can make sure we know where to go, how to find you, who this is for?
Yeah. I think starting a health journey and all the things that we spoke about today can feel really overwhelming and daunting, right? And so many people say, it's too much for me to do. I'm not going to do any of it. But the truth is that small changes matter, and they lead to larger incremental changes. And so if you can just get out of your head that you have to be perfect, because when we strive for perfection, we're just met with failure. You don't have to be perfect, and no one is perfect. You just have to be a little better. Mm-hmm. And a little better begets a little better. And if you think small things don't matter, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. Small changes matter. Mm-hmm. So I wrote my course, and I now hold this group program because it is so much easier to make these small changes together. Mm-hmm. It really is. And my course is for anyone, anywhere along the breast cancer spectrum, from what I call the worried well, right? You don't have a diagnosis, but you're scared of breast cancer, through to, I have women with metastatic disease in my course.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone feels at home because we're all after the same thing. We all want to be healthy and we all want to be the very best versions of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we're promoting there. You being the best you, me being the best me, and us lifting each other up and holding each other up.
So powerful. What does holistic living mean to you, Jenn?
I really think that it's being mindful of everything that is contributing to your health or taking away from it, right? And it takes a very conscious person to think about it and live life that way. But the rewards of doing it are so great that I wouldn't have it any other way. But I don't want to pretend that it's all easy, because it's not. It's not easy to change the way you eat when you're surrounded by people that eat differently. It's not easy to move your body every single day when all you want to do is crawl under the covers. It's not easy to avoid toxins when you're not always in your own environment. But there are so many things that we can control. And while it is scary to walk outside of your tribe, sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. And we really didn't even touch much on trauma and relationships, but this is something that everyone should be thinking about, because it absolutely influences our health, and it can really negatively influence our health.
Mm-hmm.
So, asking ourselves, what have we been through? What can we overcome? What can we do to make tomorrow better than today? And just really living by that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So maybe some breath work for us all to release that trauma.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many ways, from certainly breath work. There are people that are specifically skilled to help people to overcome past trauma. And then I really love the work that's being done around psilocybin.
Yeah.
I think it's making a huge difference for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely something I have looked into, thanks to a few functional doctors that I know, for myself. And it's just a matter of convincing my husband that it's not too far out there. But, a decade from now, it'll probably be mainstream. And
it will be.
Many people will be healing, and it will be a beautiful thing. So, Jenn, thank you so much for sharing space with me today, and just all of your wisdom, your nuggets of health information, and help. Every person that listens to this, I know, will be very thankful for you as well. So
I'm so glad.
With that, I'm so thankful, and we are all done. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah.
I'm over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of The Urban Pharmacy. For today's show notes, head on over to theurbanpharmacy.com and be sure to join us inside our private Facebook group called The Urban Pharmacy, where we share inspiration, live trainings, and holistic living tips to help you build community and the healthy lifestyle that you've always wanted. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Before we connect again on the next show, follow me on Instagram at The Urban Pharmacy. That's urban with an H and pharmacy with an F. And I can't wait to hear your wellness journey as we get to know each other better. There's truly no better time than now to level up your life, and I am so proud of you for showing up today. Until next time, be well, Health Crusader.